How to find deals for Puerto Rico real estate. Puerto Rico has had one of the hottest real estate markets in history. Americans have chosen Puerto Rico as a location to conduct business, vacation to, and even establish permanent residence. The major draws of Puerto Rico include tax incentives, cheaper real estate, and year-round tropical weather. But how do we analyze deals in Puerto Rico? How do we get the data for these listings? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide to get short and long-term real estate listings in different cities within Puerto Rico. We will query an API using Python. My name is Ariel Herrera, your fellow data scientist with the AnalyticsAriel channel, where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. I am passionate about providing data solutions, so follow my channel to get the latest content of real estate analytics. And stay tuned to the end where I provide you insights on how to visualize the data using Kepler maps. All right, let's get started. Right now, I'm on Clasificados Online. This is where people can buy and sell goods in Puerto Rico, similar to Craigslist. And here we have information on real estate that's for sale, as well short-term and long-term listings. Now you may be thinking, why are we looking at this site and not on a Zillow? Well, Zillow does have listings that are from brokers, but sometimes that can be outdated as well. If we want to look to get a deal and work directly with sellers or potentially get something off market, this could be a great way to do so. I highly suggest check out my prior video on how to actually search for listings on this site. What we're going to do is use an API to extract the listing data so we can analyze it in a spreadsheet. The API we're going to be requesting data from is Puerto Rico Real Estate. And this has been created by AnalyticsAriel alongside a talented web scraper too. In order to get started, it's important for us to just know quickly what this API is about and how we can get data. Then we'll jump into the Jupyter Notebook. So on the left-hand side, we have our endpoints. Think of endpoints as folders where we can get and extract data. There are two different folders here. We have for sale property data and we have rental property data. Within this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to get for sale listings as well as rental listings. To get started, use the link below to find Puerto Rico Real Estate API. Next, you're going to sign up for a free Rapid API account. Rapid API is a site that has a plethora of APIs available. Instead of having to sign up for each API individually, all you need to do is sign up for Rapid API once for free, and you could use other APIs within the platform. Once you sign up for Rapid API, then subscribe to this API here. For this API, we provide 20 free searches per month. You could also go to a higher plan if you want to analyze deals, so maybe across the whole island of Puerto Rico. On the right-hand side of the API, we could see code snippets. Code snippets allows us to quickly copy this code, paste it, say, into our own notebook like Google Colab, and run it to get data. We also have example responses where you could see what type of data returns from the API. In this case, we're going to get information like street address, bedrooms, bathrooms, list price, the town, image, location, and URL of the property. So let's jump right into the Python notebook. Here I'm in Google Colab. Google Colab is free to use. All you have to do is set up a Gmail account, use the link below to open up this file, and save a copy to your drive. Then you could run the same code that I'm doing so here. In this tutorial, we're going to get properties for sale and for rent from the Clasificados website. You can read more about the background and example use cases for this data, but let's jump right into it. So the first step is we want to install packages. We're going to be using Kepler to be able to visualize where our listings are. So you can either press play here, or you can select Control Enter to run the cell. Once the library is installed, we're going to import the remaining libraries that we're going to be using. So click play here. This includes some libraries that are specific to Google Colab, data wrangling, and visualization. Next, we have several functions here. In order to run these functions all at once, we can go down a bit more. I know it's a lot of code, but I'll be walking through what the overall theme of these functions are. Now at local and constants, we can click on the cell and we could select runtime, run before. This is another option if we want to run multiple cells without having to click each one individually. Now we could see that there's a check mark on the left-hand side, so that has completed. Now our locals and constants, this part is optional. The goal here is that we want to have our rapid API key. This is a unique key that will allow us to connect to the data. This key is found on the rapid API site. There's two locations. In the middle where it says header, you could locate your rapid API key. As well, on the right-hand side, when you look at code snippets, it's there as well. Well, for me, I have all my API keys stored in a file called API keys. I'm connecting to my Google Colab folder, then I'm locating API keys using pandas, and I'm stating where that column says rapid, then go grab my key. If you want to skip this part, that's okay. You could just comment this out and then enter your API key here within strings. I'm going to run these two cells. When I run this cell, Google asks to connect to Google Drive. So I'll connect, select my name, and click allow. After I can run the bottom cell to read in my file and get my API key. Great, so now we can go into my favorite part, which is actually getting this data. The listings that are for sale and short-term listings that are on the website, we're going to now extract this automatically using an API and with the programming language Python. So first step, we're going to work with for sale properties. Our first example is selecting one single city to search for all listings. There are several ways we could find all listings. For one, we can go back to clasificados, go to for sale, and here we could see all the options of different cities we could search data for. In addition, if we go back to the top and scroll a little bit down, we could see in useful resources Puerto Rico towns. Here I have a Google Sheets that actually gives you all of the cities we could search for, as well as their population and how large it is, as well when it was founded. To start, I'm going to select a very popular city, San Juan, and specifically Conado and Miramar. Now to query the actual API, I already have that all wrapped within a function, so it's super easy to use. We're going to pass in our rapid API key, our town ID, and our range of low price and high price. So in this example, I'm looking for listings that are between $5,000 to $500,000. Now I can click run. We could see here that our API request was successful. In the next cell, I can view what this response looks like. I could see here that there are some street addresses, information on listings, bathrooms, but this is very hard to read. So how do we actually get this into a table format? Well, if we go down here, we could view some of the attributes of our response first. So let's transform our response into a JSON object, and we could look at all the keys that are available. So let's select play here. We could see that the keys available is status, properties, and meta. Likely we want to get our data from properties. But what's important about some of this information that's received is we could see current page, max page, and listing URL. Let's click the listing URL. This is the page that's being scraped on the back end and served up as an API. We could see all the listings, which is 59 in total, that met our requirement of being between 5,000 to 500,000 within San Juan, Conado. And if we click the first one, we could also see more information as well as square footage. Now what this is telling us here is that we just scraped the first page, but there's 2 pages available since there's 59 listings in total. So how do we get data for all 59? Well, the next step, we could use the same exact function, except we set all pages to true, and this will get data for all pages. This will also be 2 API requests, since it's going to be 2 pages in total. Let's select run. Now we could see that our API request was successful. If in only 3 seconds, we got all pages. The reason why 3 seconds is because we paused, since the API does have a requirement that there's 2 requests per second when using basic plan. Now to view this data in a data frame, we can run the next cell. In the next cell, we're actually transforming our list. we have a list of for sale responses. So each page, so there's 2 different responses. And we transform this into a data frame which has 59 rows, 10 columns to view the data. The data we have is street address, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, list price, property type, say if it's an apartment, a house, and a commercial building, town, image, URL, latitude, and longitude. Now let's take a step back to see how these functions actually work. What Get For Sale Listings does is it takes in your Rapid API key, town ID, different optional parameters, and then it goes to get the data from Rapid API. We could see here we have a section of request. I have some logic up front. You don't have to worry about formats in that case. Then down below is where we're actually shifting the logic to look for all pages. So in the case that you select, yes, I want to get all pages. So if there's 5 pages of listings on the website, I want to get all 5. That then goes into this logic where we are going through every page that's available. We're getting the data and we're appending it to a list. The other function that we used was transform listings to a data frame. For each response in our list, so say if there's 5 pages, we'll have 5 different objects in our list. And for each one of those, we're basically taking the properties and we're putting it into a data frame. Then we're using concat and pandas to put all these separate data frames, all these separate tables into one single table that we can analyze. Great, now we have our data, but we want to analyze it and see what actually makes the content of these listings. So if we want to view the contents of the data frame, we could use group by and pandas to look at what the data is. In this case, if we group by property type and we count the different addresses per property type, we could see that for sale in this area, 83% of these properties are apartments. And that makes sense because San Juan is right by the water, there's a lot of high rises, so likely this would be the majority of listings available. And we also have a pie chart we created using Plotly Express to quickly visualize this as well. In the next cell, we're going to add some features. So in our case, if we look back at the data, bedrooms and bathrooms are available, but we have text on the right-hand side, and that we want to remove. So within our add features, we're basically normalizing our current columns and creating other columns towards the end for number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, list price as an integer. So now we can do some aggregations on this data. In data analysis and analytics in general, you always want to have a good understanding of what comprises your data set. So it's very important to try to visualize and see where your data lies. In the next cell, let's look at the property attributes for bed and bath. Here we could see that 33% of these properties are 1 bed, 1 bath, and the others are studios. So about 50% or so of these properties are smaller size. This makes sense for the same reason as before. It's in a city, it's close to the water, likely high rises with small spaces. Now, if we were searching for properties in the countryside, we may see more 3 beds, 4 baths, larger homes. In the next cell, we could view distribution by looking at histogram and box plots. Again, we see that mostly the number of bathrooms is 1 single bathroom. We could also look at the distribution of list price. If you're new to box plots, they're pretty simple. We just get to see where our data lies. On the lower bound, we could see that the cheapest property is $55,000. On the higher end, $500,000 for the list price. Then most of the data sits between $235,000 and about $400,000 with the median as $310K. If we want to get our data into a spreadsheet, we can uncomment this below and view it, say, in Excel or Google Sheets. Let's move on to short-term rentals. This could be really useful, say, if you want to be a backpacker, go straight to Puerto Rico, live there for several years, or if you're looking to maybe acquire a vacation rental from someone who's already developed one. Well, the first step here is to view all rental towns available. If we enter in our Rapid API key, we could see all of the rental towns. There's 92 in total, and we could also use the percentage if we wanted to view all. I'm going to select here 2 different towns to get data from. This is going to be Carolina and Ponce. Now if I press play, I could see when I filter on DF Rental Towns that DF Rental Towns does contain these names. And now that I have these names, I'm going to iterate through a list to get data for each of these towns. And I'm going to use the get long-term rentals function to do so, and ultimately transform it into a data frame that I could read as a table. The function summarizes for us when we're getting data, what the city is, how many pages we're getting data for. In this case, we're looking for all pages. So Carolina had 3 pages and Ponce had 4 pages. And in total, this took about 8 seconds to run. And if we press play next, we could look at all of our long-term rentals. These long-term rentals likely are for 6 months to a year, so they're going to be for a longer period of time. We could see the address, bedrooms, bathrooms, list price, property type, town, sublocation, image, URL, latitude, and longitude. Please note that at times the street address isn't the actual address, it's just the name of the listing. Therefore, you could use latitude and longitude to really hone in on where this property is, which I'll show you in just a bit how to do so in a map. In order to analyze this data, we want to do a similar step as we did previously for sale listings. We want to add features so we can understand this data. We're going to take a similar approach where we're normalizing number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and list price so that they could all be integers that we could then plot. We could see the new columns that we've added towards the end. And if we run the next cell, one of our questions may be, what is the median rental price? If I buy a home in Puerto Rico as an investment property, what can I potentially rent it for? Where here, we did a simple group by. We're looking at each location and we're understanding by bedrooms, the median, mean, min, and max for the rental properties. So the way we would read this here, if we're looking to purchase in Carolina and we want to get a 3-bedroom property, the median rent it's going for is $1,400. So we'll need to back into our calculations to make sure that we have a property that ultimately cash flows and makes sense if we purchase it. Our last section here is getting properties for rent short term. It's going to follow very similar steps to the previous. So what we're doing different here is that we're going to get information on all rental listings. So first, I'm just going to go through a simple example, and this is getting short-term rental listings for the town ID Metro. Here we could see there were 10 rows. I didn't get all pages, I just got the first page. And this is the type of information that we will receive back, including price. Now beforehand, when we were looking at long-term rental listings, we were able to see DF Rental Towns to view all the potential cities that we could search for. Our question now is, if we want to look at short-term rental data, how do we know which cities have that data available? Well, what I'm doing here is doing a for loop. I'm going to go through each of these cities and I'm going to query the cities to see how many pages of data does it have. If it has 0 pages of data, that means there's nothing available and we can't extract that data. But if we see that there's pages of information, we can then look to query that for our short-term listings. Once complete, we basically queried each of these cities once to see how many listings each of them have. We have 92 rows in total. We could see that some cities like Metro, Central, Este, Norte actually have data available, where others, like the third to last row, has 0 max pages, meaning no listings. So this helps us to just get an overview of what data is available as well, and then you could query individual cities, similar to how I did up top, to get the data. Now my favorite part here is, Ariel, what happens if we don't get the actual address? How do we visualize where these listings are? Well, in this case, we could use Kepler maps. Within our API, we already have latitude and longitude. Let's take for sale listings as an example. I'm going to copy our current data frame and create a new one called DF for sale map, since we're going to map this. We already have latitude and longitude, but let's change this to numeric so it could be passed into our geo data frame. Here we pass in our data frame for sale map, and state which columns are a longitude and latitude. Now when we run this, it looks pretty similar of a data frame. However, we now have this new column called geometry. And if we click the next cell, we create our own Kepler chart. We had our own function that I created called getKeplerMapConfig. And that basically stated the config requirements for our Kepler chart. And now we could see where all of our listings are, and we could hover over some of these as well. And there's different color schemes. We have lighter colors and darker colors. This represents price. The darker the color, the higher the price. In this case, we see a price for $450,000. And the lower the color, the lower the price. In this case, there's a house for $130,000. I hope this tutorial has been super useful to see how you could use an API to be able to get data, listings, long-term and short-term for Puerto Rico. You could then use this data to analyze rental prices as well as list prices, and ultimately whether a deal would cash flow or not. Please leave comments below on the tools that you use to search for real estate in Puerto Rico. As well, like this video if you want to see more like it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks.